right, welcome everybody to our latest Live Motocross podcast as we talk all things SMX, MXGP, MXoN with Jason Thomas and Adam Sterry. Obviously, firstly, thank you everyone for listening and supporting the site. We really appreciate it. We'd also like to thank our partners in 24MX, Dirt Store, Fuchs Silkaline and Dragon Energy for all their incredible support, as without them, none of this would be possible. All right, firstly, welcome Jason Thomas. How's life and thanks for joining us just off the SMX season finish, mate. You're just about to head to Europe to keep the schedule rolling, mate. So how are you?
Yeah, everything's good. It's interesting time because you wrap up everything and everyone leaving SMX and Vegas is kind of in celebration mode and looking forward to a well-deserved off season. And there were a few of us that were kind of still looking at these races on the schedule, especially Matterley. Like I think I'm unique to be going to Spain first, but everyone still had that European trip still on the calendar, at least to the UK anyway. So I'm looking forward to it. I've spent a significant portion of my life. I was trying to add it all up, and it's about 10%, maybe 8 to 10% of my life in Europe. So it's the second home for me. I really, really enjoy it, especially when the weather cooperates, summer, fall, all that. I enjoy my time over there.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Well said. And obviously, Adam, you're in Europe, mate. And obviously, since we've last spoke, you've locked up a new deal next season with the Chambers Racing to be doing the British and some MXGP rounds, mate. So congratulations on that. And how are you? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, good mate, good. I'm in full off season at the moment. So yeah, nice to be back home in the UK. And yeah, of course, drive home yesterday and ever since it's not stopped raining. So
So
hopefully
Adam, will you race at
sorry.
all until some of the international off-season races like late winter, early spring?
No. So normally my plan would be now I'm gonna take normally a month and a half off
Okay.
and yeah, go on holiday in that time. I still train a little bit just to now I'm getting older. Obviously, you just look at a Big Mac and seems to you seem to put the weight on
Yeah.
compared to when I was younger. So it's kind of important that I stay a little bit in shape. And but I think that downtime is important after such a busy year traveling, and your body takes such a hammering in the months that I think a reset for mentally and physically, I think it's a good thing. And yeah, like I said, go on holiday and then first week November-ish start training again and go on a physical training camp for 2 weeks and then riding and yeah, between Spain, Europe, the UK, depends where the weather is best. And yeah, my first race normally will be Hawkstone International most of the time.
February-ish, something like that?
Yeah, February. Normally it's the end of February. Yeah, so
Okay. Yeah, it's a pretty long
yeah, no
break.
racing until then. I'm not a Supercross guy at the moment,
Yeah.
so I know a lot of people doing the Indian Supercross, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not. I'm focused on getting a good winter and being best prepared as I can for a busy year next year with the GPs and British Championship.
Sure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, mate. It's really cool. Obviously, yeah, it's been a pretty brutal season in many ways for you, mate. So you'll be looking forward to a break. And then I guess before we talk about the racing, how would you sort of best sort of structure your off season usually, JT? Obviously, you didn't mind doing those European races and keeping pretty active and, staying on the bike quite regularly, mate. So how would you sort of approach it?
Oh
Obviously, it's
man.
changed a little bit, but just tell us about your programs.
Yeah, off season was kind of a misnomer for me. Really, back then, of course, there was no SMX, right? So the month of September was pretty much off. Our season was one weekend longer back then. We have a holiday called Labor Day in the States, and the Steel City National would typically end the season on Labor Day weekend. A lot of the races are kind of built around holidays so people can plan their holidays and go to these races, and the races really benefit from that kind of consistent scheduling. So that would be the first weekend in September, and then I would have basically that entire month of September off. But for me, that was just an opportunity to prepare for Supercross. So the first week after Steel City, I wouldn't ride a lot, maybe one day, and I would just basically ride Supercross and no real like motos, but just do some riding, get used to the track, get my bike set up again, work on getting my bike built for Supercross, maybe just practice, get the jumps down, whatever. But then that second week, I would be back at it. I would start doing 20 lap motos and wasn't super worried about intensity, but I was just trying to log laps in. And really the reason for the urgency was there was always a race called in Canada, Montreal Supercross. That was an important one for me. And I raced it every year and typically did really well there. But I would be really prepared for it. And most of the people that came in they had taken a lot of time off. They would maybe ride the week of the race, but that's about it. And I knew that if I could come in extremely prepared, I could take advantage of that. So it was always just kind of a coup for me, even though I didn't want to be training and riding. To win it was probably 10 or 11K US. So it's kind of worth the torture to keep going. And then October would slow down a little bit. I would kind of go back to a little bit of maintenance, start working on intensity a little bit. And then all of November and all of December were, racing in Europe, racing in Australia, all over the place. So I would try to mix in some fun in September and October. But I would really never veer too far away from my normal schedule just because the money, I could almost match my income in like 10 races that I could for the entire rest of the season. Depending on how the season went, sometimes I wasn't able to do that. But, just looking back on it, I could make, anywhere from 75 to 100 grand in a few races if things went well. And then the rest of the season, I think my best year in the US, all in, I made around 250. So you figure even in my best year, it was 30% of my income was in those races. So it was a really important time of the year for me to be prepared for.
Did you feel that physically and mentally affect you later in the year?
Yeah. Oh, no question it did. I really struggled. Yeah, go ahead.
Obviously in America it's very intense schedule and a lot of races. But do you feel maybe it's stays a bit more fresh because it's kind of like two seasons, because you obviously do Supercross and then it's something different when you switch to the outdoors, and then obviously now you've got SMX, which is something different again. I think maybe obviously they feel really it physically and mentally. It's just a bit easier maybe when it's not the same thing.
Yeah, I just struggled to maintain intensity. On the weekends, late in the season, I think for people who've never raced, like it's kind of like that feeling of like getting up for the race. You just kind of almost feel robotic versus having energy. And I had no burst at all. Right. And that's just what you're talking about. That mental and physical fatigue was really setting in, and I knew it. But at the same time, like the financial side of it was really tough to kind of compromise. So I knew that I was setting myself up for a struggle late in the season. There's no question about it.
And obviously what's difficult for a lot of people that don't race at that level, or it's not like boxing or where you prepare for like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks for one event. Like in motocross, it's difficult to plan to be at your peak for 9-10 months of the year. It's kind of hard to stay at that level. You kind of have to time it right. Like we have the problem sometimes if you start too early, then you don't want to be really good at the start, but then fade out halfway through the year or be fatigued or get ill or so in motocross, I think a lot of people don't understand. It's really difficult to not to plan that, but to stay at that level for such a period of time.
Yeah, and I think if you go back and look through history, a guy like Justin Brayton, who had a ton of success in Europe and Australia, multiple, he's won Bercy, he's won multiple Australian championships, won Geneva. Like he is incredibly gifted at those races. And he would come into like Anaheim 1, he would often win the heat race. Like he would be at his best early on in January, where everybody else was still trying to find their form a bit. And you could literally see his results kind of fall off. Where everybody else started to peak, he was starting to decline a bit. But again, he would make a lot of money. I mean, in his best years, I bet he made 300,000 or 400,000 in that period, right? So he was like, "Yeah, it's worth it. I don't care. I don't care if I'm struggling late. There's too much money to be made to not do it." So, but it definitely is a thing, no question.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting conversation to have. It's really cool to have the rider, you've been there, seen it before, both of you. And I guess it's not like a team sport where you can just, have a couple of games off or sit on the bench for half a race. You got to be there every single time. Individual sports, you got to be lining up. And I guess the nation sort of brings that into sharp focus in many ways coming at the end of the season, especially after that big US season, big MXGP season. So I guess we'll touch on that, JT. Obviously, you go first. Team USA, obviously been so much drama. Obviously had the Hymas issue last week, him pulling out, Webb stepping up. Obviously, Tomac's filling in for Sexton now. So, it was a legitimate chance of not going from a lot of reports, mate. So there's a lot to consider, obviously, before the decision was made. All the funding from Star, are they in or out? So I guess dude's given up holidays and all that. So just give us a little bit of an insight into how it all worked and how excited are you for having Tomac at the Nations, mate? It's going to be box office, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy, to be honest. The Hymas thing happened and then Webb stepped up. And I think everybody was like, okay, AP is not his best self, but we'll be okay. We'll have a decent team with what we have. As long as AP can race, Sexton, Plessinger, Webb was reasonable. Is it the best team we could possibly put on the track? Probably not. It's hard to imagine a world where Deegan isn't racing, that's our best team. But then Sexton goes down in Vegas, and we were very, very close to not racing for Motocross of Nations. And it really came down to Tomac saying yes or no. And leaving Saturday night, leaving Vegas, I would have said it was more likely he was going to say no. It wasn't an immediate, yes, I'll step in. Yes, I'll answer the call. It was, well, we have a lot of plans. This wasn't in the plans at all. We need to think about this. I don't want to make a hasty decision. So they gave him until Monday morning, basically, to sort things out, go through all the pros and cons. And in the end, thankfully, he realized that, yeah, he needed to do this, not only for the benefits he would gain, but the team was relying on him. There are a lot of people that were, fans, and everybody were kind of like, man, we really need you in this moment. So yes, it was a really, really difficult time. There was a lot of moments where I think even people on the inside were like, I don't think we're going to race, just because nothing was lining up. We've already missed the time to ship things, and even for Webb's bike, they were going to have to air freight it on a commercial airliner. So they're going to have to do the same thing for Tomac's bike now. It's a really, really challenging set of circumstances. But in the end, if you're simply looking at the team, it's pretty solid. We'll see how Webb does. I don't know how that drop to a 250 will work. It's going to be really tough on him. But a team of Tomac, Plessinger, Webb, is a podium possible? Maybe. I don't know. I think we'll be in the mix with teams like Spain and the UK and Belgium and, a lot of teams that have a chance. I think there are favorites. I think France, Australia, Netherlands are all kind of the top tier, and we'll see who else can kind of make their mark inside of that.
Yeah, Adam, what do you think, mate? Obviously, you got some guys going down to the 250 like Webb, and then you got Searle going up to the 450. Just how difficult is that transition sort of when you're not doing it all year? Is it quite tough, mate, from your perspective?
Yeah, I would say so. At that level, of course. I would say from personal experience, I guess it depends on people's style as well and stuff, but I would say it's harder, in my opinion, to go from a 250 rider to jump on a 450. Just because the 250, you can kind of like get on it and ride it like a 125 a little bit, like when you've been riding a 450 all year. But on the 450, you need to respect it a lot more. A lot goes into the engine. Like, can't be too fast, needs to be rideable. And yeah, them 450s, they can bite you if you don't respect it in the right way. So, but yeah, that's obviously the good thing about America. You have a lot of good riders, and obviously, if Tomac is available and he can take it, then of course that's one of the first choices that you would make normally in the team. And I think that's definitely a podium contender team. But the Nations is funny. We've seen in the past with many teams. Obviously, a lot of luck, good starts. The 250 riders results are really important. The weather in Matley might play a factor in it. The good British weather, and yeah,
Don't
you
even
never
say
know.
it. It's going to be sunny and really nice out.
Well, it's only doing nothing but rain here in the UK at the minute, so it's not
perfect.
looking hopeful. But nah, I'm sure it'll be okay. But yeah, that's a solid team, and And this year, I think potentially it's maybe the most stagnations we've ever had, with a lot of teams like Slovenia with Pankar and Geyser. That's also a very good team. I think there's a lot of teams which can do really good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be so fascinating. And before we get to that, I guess, JT, your take on Deegan, was there any thoughts? Do you reckon he's had any sort of regret or lamenting about the situation? Obviously, especially when you see Chance was willing to step up injured, obviously had to pull out. But I guess is it a missed opportunity to sort of grow the empire? The sponsors would have loved it, obviously, to elevate everything and, spread the word even more about the Deegan sort of situation. Mate, what's your take on that just quickly?
Yeah, I was curious. I think the way things were going, they were okay with it. They were getting some pushback, but they explained the wrist thing. I think that he could have still managed this race even with the wrist procedure. I think there was a pathway for that, which had been mapped out. But I think they were okay. But now with Tomac stepping in, who was, in my opinion, the linchpin before, I don't know. I think they're already committed to their decision and they just have to live with it. But I wonder if there was like did we make the right call here? Was that thought in their head, or did Brian and Hayden have that talk? Is like, maybe we should have rethought. I don't know. What's done is done. And they're doing what they think is best for them, which is most important. But it's certainly an interesting question to pose, is if they've had any regret whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be good. And obviously for you, Adam, what's your take on Team USA? Obviously starts are going to be so important, and obviously you can follow on with this afterwards, JT, but AP starts have been pretty solid of late. Tomac, when he gets that scoop on, absolutely ripping. Cooper Webb will be so instrumental that start. So what's your sort of keys to success for USA, and obviously on that Madley Basin track, which you know so well?
Obviously, the start in every race is important. I'm not sure. I know they've made a few changes to the track, but I'm not sure if the start's changed. If the start's the same as it was in previous years, then it's actually really fair. You can, apart from far outside, I'm pretty sure you can get a good start from anywhere on the gate. It's not like an Arco or Latvia where you need them inside gates. So yeah, that's going to help the 250 riders. And yeah, the track. Obviously, I didn't ride this version of it that they've made, but it seems a lot more faster, which maybe might suit the American riders a bit more. But yeah, it looks good. Obviously, I'm gutted that I'm not riding there, but it is what it is, and I'm sure. Well, pretty sure I'll be there anyway, supporting the boys, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it as a fan.
Yeah, JT, those starts are so key. Obviously, the Hondas with the Lawrence brothers, hopefully they'll be translating that over to the nations as well. And Kyle Webster on a pretty well factory HRC bike too. So important those starts, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think the MXGP and MX2 riders have the starts truly figured out. And I think the proof of that is every time we have this event, those guys kind of are at the front. I don't know where this will all play out, because in the US, Jet and Hunter have been pretty much untouchable on the starts, and Tomac he's done his part too as of late. So I'm very interested. I don't have a hard opinion. I kind of want to see where Jet, Hunter, Prado all kind of fall in here on the starts, because right now I think those three are arguably the best starters on the planet on 450s, and I don't truly have an opinion of who will come out. I think Prado is the favorite for the starts, just because he has such a library of work of hole shotting over his entire career, and we're going to be on familiar confines for him. And also you have to think about the material that this start will be on. These guys are more familiar with. So we have our greats, but it's different material, different compound. Those little subtle changes doesn't mean that Jet's going to start 15th. But if we think that Jet and Hunter are going to have the same exact start, I don't know. Maybe they do. But any sort of variable that comes into play is an opportunity for things to be a little bit different.
Yeah, it sort of brings everything into focus, that's for sure. And I guess continue with you, JT, then Adam afterwards. Obviously, we spoke a bit of strategy and tactics last week, JT, on the podcast. So I guess how would you sort of alter those, and who would you be given the prime positions given the team makeup of America at the moment?
It's really tough. I was pushing, I didn't have anybody to push to, but my opinion was that they should go with Webb on the inside and Sexton outside when that opportunity arose. And then with AP, either way, probably put AP in the front again, simply because Sexton is used to coming through traffic. And I don't think a good inside gate would really benefit him, but it could very much benefit Webb. That's kind of where I came down on it. Now with Tomac in the equation, I'm not as sold on it. I still think that maybe Tomac is better to be put outside, especially if the start is the same, as Adam was saying about being more fair. But the really low result is so critical. And if Tomac feels incredibly confident on the start and he thinks he can get out front and finish somewhere in the top 3, we need that score. So it's going to be a really interesting and very important strategic decision, is how do they manage the starting gate positions? Because if I always lean into, if you have a bad starter, don't worry about his gate pick. He's likely going to be a bad starter anyway, and try to get the best position for the guy that you need at most on the inside. So that was kind of where I was. But now with Tomac, that all kind of goes out the window. So it's something to watch for. Maybe it'll be situational. They'll kind of see who's going where. I think that's another way to play it. You see, are the preeminent teams putting their MX2 guys to the inside, because I think you just go with the flow of that, or do they put the Prados and the Fevret, do they put their marquee guys to the inside? In that situation, I think you have to match that. So there's a lot of strategy at this race. I think the starting positions and who goes where is one of the most underreported on, but sometimes it is maybe the most important.
Absolutely. Adam, your insights on that one?
Yeah, I feel the same as GT. It's a pretty difficult decision. I mean, I would always probably slightly favour especially on a fair start, like Matterley with the 250 gets the better gate pick, but it all depends on the rider and the first initial way you qualify with the gate pick as well. Because I'm pretty sure, like for example, if Spain qualifies really high up, I'm pretty sure Prado or Jet can still hold shot from gate 20, 21, 22, etc. in Matterley on the start that it was before.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
In that scenario, say Spain does well on Saturday and they qualify 3rd or 4th, let's say. Do you you still put Oliver on the inside and put Prado in the 23rd gate pick, or do you put Prado on the inside, almost guaranteeing a whole shot from him and maybe a moto win?
I would put Oriol on the inside, and I would put Prado still at gate 23. Just because on that start, I think he can still take a top 3 start from gate 20 to 23, whatever it may be, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's all. I mean, I don't know that there's a right or wrong, right? That's why it's strategy.
Because a lot of it depends where people go as well. I know people will favor the inside, but a lot of people tend to start near the box, like a lot of GPs this year. I would have 20 to etc. gate pick around this area, and I would be starting right next to Geyser. Like in Czech Republic, I had last gate pick, or second to last or third to last gate pick, because my wheel broke in the qualifying race, and I ended up starting in between Geyser and Stewart, or Geyser and Fevre, or something like this. So it's strange.
Hunter's been doing that. Hunter's been doing that quite a bit in the US. He will go more towards the middle, and he's been getting great starts. So he's kind of the only one. He's been Tomac every once in a while, but I would say those two have been pretty consistent with going more towards the middle than that inside.
Yeah, if the start's fair and you can go in the middle, and you know that you're going to beat the people out of the gate around you, then for me it's kind of a bit of a no-brainer as well, because if you start next to someone who's also a really good starter, whoever gets the handlebars in front is going to beat that guy out the start. So
I'll give you a great example of that, and where I could not believe what I was seeing was this past weekend in Las Vegas. In the first moto, right before Sexton was injured, he chose the gate right next to Jet, and Sexton's starts have been very poor. He has not been able to get out of the gate itself. They've been working on the engine, they've been working on the clutch, but nothing's really seeming to help enough. So just like you're saying, I could not understand why you would ever start next to Jet. Why? Like, go out next to, whoever. Go out next to Dean Wilson and those guys. You have a better chance of at least clearing them over the gate and being able to accelerate cleanly, because Jet's going to be in front of you almost guaranteed in the first 15 feet. And then you're double clutching and all the bad things that come with a poor start.
Yeah, and of course, then he's going to block you, and then it's going to make your start even worse. Like in Europe, I think you see a lot more of. There's a lot more space. Like you will see guys that line up, then one gate free, then Jeffrey, then one gate free, then Fevre, then that's where I was saying before, like how I kind of in them gate positions kind of ended up slotting sometimes in between. It would be like where I'd go if I had like 5th or 6th gate pick, which is a bit strange, but obviously it's for that exact reason. If it's a possibility you can take one gate over and not start directly next to somebody, like Prado, guys, if you can leave a gate, that's much better. He would much rather start next to me, who on my bike this year is not really possible to beat guys who are out of the start. Then of course he would rather take that than lock bars with Prado and end up last into the first turn in a track like Czech Republic.
Yeah, it's super interesting conversation to have. And obviously, if you look at the Netherlands, one of the favourites, obviously, Hurlings has been notoriously sort of struggling with those starts. And De Wolf on a 250, obviously being a bigger guy, he's had a few issues with the starts too. So that's going to be so important to them. And I guess favourites-wise, guys, we'll have a quick chat. Who at this point would you guys have given the edge to? Obviously, Fevre, Vial, Renault, winning team from last year is absolutely elite. And then the Lawrence brothers and Webster. It's really a great team too. So, Team USA is going to be up there for sure. Team Belgium, solid, even though Everts is out. Jago's replaced him. But there's just so many good riders. It's absolutely stacked. You go down the list, we're talking about Italy, Spain, even Switzerland with Siwa and Gio. So just tell us about your thoughts on, I guess, who you give the edge to at this point, JT, and then you, Adam.
So I would say that there's not a clear favorite. I think there are 3, as I mentioned, kind of that top tier between Australia, France, and the Netherlands that I think all can win, and depending on weather conditions and many things. But Glenn Koldenhoff is notoriously competent at this event, particularly. Even if he's having an off year, he always finds a way to really show up at this event. So I think those 3 are kind of co-favorites. And then I look at kind of the next level down of the USA, Spain, maybe the UK could make it interesting on home soil, Belgium, probably missing somebody in there. Italy, maybe if they, Bonacorsi could have a great day. But I think it's really for the win, I think it's between those 3, and then everyone else to try to make it interesting from there. And probably the biggest variable is the weather. If we get crazy weather, then also you can get crazy results, but kind of how I see it.
I completely agree. I think exactly the same. I think that the 3 that you mentioned at the front, I think are the top 3. But it's the nations. Anything can happen. If I had to pick clear favourite to say who would win, I would put my money on Holland. But that's my opinion, and I guess we will see and how it is. Like I said, the track's a bit faster, might suit people how it is, but it all comes down to the start, weather. But I think them 3 are the favourites. I guess it depends how Webster does. I would put Australia favourite, but I'm not. I don't know him so well. I don't know how that will go down. That's why I would say Holland, in my opinion, is the favorite.
It always feels like there's kind of one question on each team that has to be answered. Like for me with France, can Renault get back to former form? Like we've seen flashes of it. Like he's looked pretty good here and there, but he needs to have a solid day, and it has not been a solid season for him. Koldenhoff for the Netherlands, can he be on his best form? We know how good he's been at this race, but this is not a 2018, 2019, 2020 type year for Koldenhoff either. So he's got to bring his best stuff. The USA, is AP going to be healthy enough? Can they ride? Can Webb ride a 250 well? There's just like, Kyle Webster for Australia. What is he going to be on a world stage like this? Like we saw him ride really well at Redbud, but Matterley is much more difficult, in my opinion, to ride than Redbud. Redbud is incredibly conducive. There's traction. It's an easy track to feel comfortable on. Matterley is going to be an entirely different situation, and the amount of pressure that I think Webster is going to feel on the team with Jet and Hunter, I don't think he's probably ever felt before. So it's like each team has their own situation and problem to work around, and it's just who can manage that the best. That's, to me, how this race kind of always comes down to. And the years where nobody has a question, they typically dominate. Like they're not, the Netherlands has killed everyone in years. France has killed everyone in years. those are when they have their best team. Everybody's firing on all cylinders. It feels like everyone this year kind of has a question around their team. Can they rise to the challenge?
Yeah, and I guess that's obviously what everybody loves about the Nations and why it's such an interesting event. Another note on when you said about Webster as well, having rode Matterley, of course, many times, that's one of the most difficult tracks if you've not rode it before to learn it, because there's so many different jumps. Then, of course, when it's wet and a bit, the ruts.
The ruts are
it's one of the most difficult
really
tracks to learn from the off. Yeah, and it's really it's quite a daunting track, as in a lot of the jumps look a lot bigger than they look when you watch it on the TV before. And to ride at that highest level, like where you need the points of a second to push at the absolute max what you need at that level, you need to have the track completely dialed with the jumps, with scrubbing and the quad and all these factors. And to learn that track in that short space of time is going to be difficult.
I look at some of the sections like after you jump the quad and then you come across the top and it drops down into that right, all those ruts, like through those sections, a long right-hand rut, and then you come across back parallel to that section through ruts and then drop down to the left and more ruts. Like all those, if you don't have everything sorted and your balance and blow through those ruts, I've watched it personally and like I would be so terrible in this section. So those are the things about so challenging about that racetrack and why I compare it to Redbud. I mean, Redbud's incredibly iconic as far as a racetrack, but it's fun to ride. Like there's not anything where like, oh, I can't figure out how to go through this section. It's almost kind of easy to ride, where Matterley, I think, is just so challenging on so many fronts. Especially a first time. And that's before, when this Motocross of Nations topic for this year first came up, everybody's like, well, if we have Tomac and we have Sexton and we have Deegan, like that team can go win. I'm like, yes, but keep in mind, Deegan's never raced overseas. Sexton has not raced this race overseas, only in the US. And Tomac's got to get back to his best self. And then when Hymas came in, he's never raced overseas. I'm like, that track, that environment, it's all going to be first time experiences for all these guys. And even Plessinger this year has never raced this track either. So it's not going to be easy. And I think that gets lost in the fray. So I'm really glad you mentioned it, is just that track learning experience when you're racing in a facility that is constantly on the MXGP schedule. These guys have so many laps on it and they have their bike settings and they know exactly what it's going to be even before they show up. That's really hard to go up against in a one weekend scenario.
Yeah, another difficult thing about Matterley as well is, have you seen any of the pictures of the new layout? Or
not the new one? No, I've just watched it a million times.
Just like now it comes up like where you do the quad, and then now it goes like straight right and then straight into the wave section. So I think you're going to maybe be able to quad. Looking from the picture, I'm not sure. But a lot of things with Matterley, you end up jumping so it's in that valley. And especially in the second motos, or second and third motos as it is in the Nations, second motos of the GP, you tend to not be able to see a lot from the sun, which is also extremely difficult, especially when if you're not 100% familiar with the track, when you go up to the jump completely blind. And then, you know how it is when you can't see with the sun. It's like you're waiting for the takeoff, and then you see the takeoff, and then you kind of judge with your speed. But that's also another difficult thing. You end up jumping a lot into the sun, and a lot of the jumps end up being blind.
Yeah, that low sun in October is not much fun for the last moto of the day. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's awesome insight, lads. And there's obviously so many variables, and it's great, this conversation. And I guess with Webster, another point on that, obviously racing the 450 in the Pro MX and in those races in America, obviously won the Pro MX title. He suffered a hand injury in that finale in Pro MX, which he's recovered from, but he sort of ended up, battling through to finish level on points with Beaton, but won on more wins. But he's usually a solid starter. But like we were saying, another guy that's going off his preferred platform to the 250. So he's obviously been doing the prep in Florida for many weeks with the Lawrence brothers and all that, testing the bike, and he's got a great bike. But it's going to be a really big challenge for him. And I guess to wrap it up, obviously you're going to jet off pretty soon, lads, but MXGP finale this season, it's sort of shaping up how you wanted it, JT. It's got Prado, Spain, the finale. Obviously, if guys who wins 1-1-1, he'll get level on points if Prado finishes second, but obviously Prado will still win with the race win. So I guess how excited are you, mate? Back to Europe. It's going to be a big couple of weeks, but yeah, guys really needs to have a bit of help. And there was a bit of talk Lewis was saying with, Hunter maybe doing that MXGP. It would be nice to have Geyser for a teammate from him, because obviously, Prado's got a few KTM group bikes on track, but it's going to be hard. Just Prado, 16 hole shots, and Geyser's only have 5. So he just puts himself in those quality positions, and I guess expect the same this weekend.
Yeah, I don't think the 1-1-1 scenario is realistic for Geyser to win. I think he's going to need some help. So he needs to try to go win every time, which of course is always the goal. But I do think it's going to have to be a situation where, Geyser has a really good weekend and Prado either has a problem, is mentally feeling too much pressure, or has a first turn crash or something. I just don't see a scenario where Geyser wins all 3 times on the weekend, not in Spain, not in this scenario. So I could be wrong. That's fine. I think that Prado comes in the favorite, but 3 individual races offers a lot of opportunity for some crazy things to happen. Going into China, no one would have ever guessed that Tim would have a foot peg problem, right? But that's what motocross racing is. It's a lot of unexpected things happen. So I think that's where Tim will need the help, is just something unexpected for Prado to go wrong. I can't wrap my head around Tim going 1-1-1 on Spanish soil. That seems really hard to see happening.
I think that will be very difficult for Geyser to go 1-1-1. Yeah, I can't see Prado having. Of course, it's motocross. There can be some problems. I don't think he will suffer mentally. I think it's going to be difficult for Geyser. He needs some help. But yeah, excited to watch it. And
it's gonna be great. As far as
in China.
Yeah, as far as a pure fan for me going just to watch, Prado being in the lead and having is amazing, right? Because just the experience side of it is going to be incredible. It has to be a really difficult emotionally for Tim to have led this championship for this long and now be on the outside looking in going into the last round.
Especially in China, because how I was looking at it before China was, normally there's not so many people in China to get between them. So they were going to stay roughly the same points. And then it was going to make it interesting in Spain because Prado was favourite and he was going to be a few points behind Geyser. But yeah, I can see Prado whole shot in both races. But Geyser's been good on the starts. I think he can be second, but I don't see him overtaking Prado and winning the moto. Maybe the second moto if Prado wins the first moto, but
Prado has been so strong on Spanish soil. It's hard to see him not at least winning something. If he just wins one time, it changes the math so much.
Yeah, it's going to be so cool to play out. And obviously with those starts, all reports of that track's pretty tight and narrow and going to be quite difficult to make those moves. So yeah, Prado at the start sort of falls into his hands if he gets them like he has been. And I guess to wrap this one up, lads, JT, SMX reflections, same with you, Adam. How is it year 2, mate? Obviously the format, brings a lot of sort of life and conversation points to the whole thing. And also JT with Fly, how's it for the nations? Have you had much to do with the gear? Obviously you got some really good riders like Webster, who we've discussed, Connolly and Natsky for Team NZ. You got UK with Conrad News, Canada, some riders there. So how's all that been for you as well?
Yeah, it's been great. Thankfully, we have such a fantastic team here in Boise that manages all those things, working with individual federations and teams. And it's a lot of work for them to coordinate because basically we have to build all new sets of gear for every different country. So the amount of legwork with the creative team and the amount of emails, it's a monumental task when you talk about multiple countries and multiple teams and riders to put it all together. But in the end, that's what this race is all about. That's why I'm such a fan of it. I think it's the biggest celebration of motocross that we have all season long. So I'm excited for it, and I'm very thankful that we get to be a part of it.
Yeah. Any SMX reflections too, JT, just quickly before we close out?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I think Jet continues to be the story. I didn't think it would go this way. I certainly didn't think he'd win the first round. But I truly believe he's the best overall motocross race, supercross racer on the world, right? If you combine all the disciplines, he might even be the best motocross rider. I don't know, right? We'll see more of that answer in Matterley. But if you're combining all of them, it's really hard for me to say that Jett is not the best there is. And I think he proved that coming off an injury, winning his second SMX championship. And man, he's only 21 years old. So future is bright there. I think, the biggest loser of all this is Sexton. Not only does he suffer another defeat to Jett, but he leaves with sounds like what is a broken hand. And now he can't even really focus on 2025 yet. He's got to focus on healing his hand. So mentally and physically, I think Chase Sexton, that was a very, very difficult weekend for him in Las Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And obviously to you, Adam, any final thoughts, mate, on what we've just chatted about and what's up with the off-season, mate? It's going to be good to have a breather and just refresh and recalibrate, I guess.
No, definitely. I mean, SMX, I enjoyed watching all three. I'm not sure, maybe JT can correct me on this. I think they seemed a little bit more supercross than last year. Would you say that, JT, or not?
Definitely Chicago last year was more motocrossy. But yes, I think this year, basically the dirt, to me, made it feel much more supercross oriented because all three were pretty hard packed, which just leans into more supercross.
The dirt, yeah, but no, that was great. I enjoyed watching all three. The racing was good. In America, you do such a good job with the live stream and the production with you and the other guys and AC, and that's makes it so much interesting to watch. For me, it's the off season, so just a little bit of chilling. It's the first week now, so haven't done so much of that yet. Really excited for next year. Really good opportunity, really good team on a good bike. Excited to be back in the GPs and of course racing the British Championship, racing the German Championship. You kind of get a little bit forgotten about, kind of a little bit what happened with the nations, I feel, from my side. So I'm excited for that. Excited to try and of course, going to be difficult with Jeffrey and Conrad's on top form. Going to be difficult to try and add a British MX1 title to go with my MX2 title, but excited for that. Excited to rise in the UK. Excited to get going. Really motivated for next year. And hopefully going to be at Matterley in 2 weeks. Excited to watch the MXGP finale. And cheer on the boys, Team GB. Hopefully they can all put it together, get a good result. And hopefully catch up with you there, JT. And
yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully the weather stays dry.
Yeah, please don't rain. I mean, if it does, it does. I walked around there in the mud for 3 days straight in 2017, so I will again, but I'd rather not.
And for the racing would be better if it's not.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, cheers again, lads. Really appreciate you taking the time for this one. Obviously, before we let you go, we thank the partners in 24MX, Dirt Still, Fuchs Clean, and Dragon Energy for all their support. All right, that's been the latest Live Motocross podcast with Jason Thomas and Adam Sterry. All the best for the weekend, lads, and we'll be in touch soon.
See you guys.
Cheers, mate.
Have a good one.